Look at you.
Look at me. I know robot when I see it.
So
What? Hi, and welcome to this episode of Help Me Understand with Dr. Thomas Jeffrey. Mr. Ray Hollenbach has agreed to join me, and we're going to take a look at some sermons that were created by AI and or a human. And we're going to see if we can figure out which is which, if at all. If you like these videos, hit the subscribe and like button. It'll help us with our algorithm, get the message out there. And if you want to know whenever we do an update, hit the notification bell. So let's go ahead and get started.
The passage we're going to be looking at is Matthew 11, sorry for the bump there, 2-6. It says, when John heard in prison what Christ was doing, he sent his disciples to ask him, this is John the Baptist, are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else? Jesus replied, go back and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cured, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is preached to the poor. Blessed is the man who does not fall away on account of me. Haven't written this yet, haven't generated the text yet, so I'm going to hit pause here, step away, go and write this thing in a way that hopefully doesn't give away my personality too much, and we're going to find out if you can tell the difference.
The give away the personality thing, I tend to think that that's what is going to be the difference between AI and humans.
You know, it's strange because I'm supposed to give a reaction as to which one I think might be AI or which two might be AI or which one or two might be written by our host here, Matt. But it puts me in the position of also having to critique the human work as well as the AI work.
I wrote a little miniature sermon on Matthew 11, 2-6. I went to ChatGPT and gave it a relatively simple prompt. I'll tell you specifically what that is when we're done. And it gave me material here as well. And then I got greedy. I was like, no, I want one more AI. Let's see what it does. And it gave me another one. So I'm actually going to read you 3 quick little sermons on this passage. I'll put the passage on the screen so you have that as a point of reference. You see if you can tell which 2 are AI and which one is me. I'm going to do my best to read all of these in an even, reasonable presentation tone that sounds like a human. All right, let's see what we get. Sermon number 1.
Here we go. Here's the challenge.
In Matthew 11, 2-6, we see the story of John the Baptist, who's imprisoned and begins to have doubts about Jesus. He sends his disciples to ask Jesus if he is the one who's to come or if they should expect someone else. Jesus responds by pointing to the signs he's been performing, healing the sick, casting out demons, and preaching the good news to the poor. He tells John's disciples to go back and report to John what they've seen and heard, that the blind see, that the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. What I find particularly striking in this passage is Jesus' patience and kindness toward John, even in the face of his doubt. Rather than getting frustrated or annoyed with John, Jesus gently reminds him of the evidence of his ministry and the fulfillment of prophecy. This is a powerful reminder for all of us, as we may also experience moments of doubt or uncertainty in our faith. It's easy to get discouraged or feel like we're failing when things don't go as we'd hoped or expected, but Jesus' example shows us that even when we struggle, he's patient and loving towards us, always ready to remind us of his presence and the truth of his word. So let's follow Jesus' example and be patient and loving towards others who may have been struggling with doubt. And let us also remember that it's okay to have the questions and to seek answers, because faith is not about having all the answers, but about trusting in Jesus and following him. Okay, that's number 1.
And I see this with students all the time is I'll ask a question and they really just restate the question and act as if that's an answer. And so a restatement of the question, a little bit of analysis with some generalization. When it is specific, it's the laundry list. And this is what I look at for AI, especially from my students' papers, comma, 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 and. In some ways, that's just a different way of just saying the same thing. There at the end, there was a little bit of synthesis of all of this. I thought I had it figured out until the very end when there was like the closing, right? And I was like, maybe I didn't have it figured out.
I randomized this in terms of the order, so don't read into the strategy. Here's number 2. Dear friends, today we're reflecting on the passage from Matthew 11:2-6, where we see John the Baptist, a man of great faith, struggling with doubt. He's imprisoned and he hears of the works that Jesus is doing, and he begins to wonder, is Jesus truly the Messiah? But Jesus doesn't become angry or frustrated with John's doubt. Instead, he patiently reminds John of all that he's done. The blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. Jesus reminds John that these are the very works that were prophesied of the Messiah. This passage reminds us that it's okay to struggle with doubt. We're all human, and it's natural for us to question and wonder. But it's important to remember that Jesus is always with us, and he's already done so much for us. He is the Messiah, the one who came to save us. So when we find ourselves struggling with doubt, let's turn to Jesus and remember all that he's done for us. Let's have faith in him and trust in his love and care for us. May we all find peace and strength in Jesus, even in the midst of our doubts. Amen.
First one was more analytical, like just breaking it down. And this had some of that too, but throughout this whole sermon there was the we. It was an invitation to all of us, to all that would be hearing this sermon, because relationships are such a big part of understanding faith and being part of that community. And there was a little bit of the laundry list, but more I felt that they pulled out in the sermon, pulled out particular pieces of it and sort of talked about how it was applicable from a practical standpoint, both from a we standpoint and from an I standpoint. Really the application, not just the here's what I've done, so this what else do you need, but more of, okay, well, this is what has been done, but what that also means for us. Okay, so that was 2.
It can be easy to see what's going on around us clearly when things are easy in our lives, but that clarity can quickly evaporate when we find ourselves under intense pressure. Under duress, foundational beliefs we usually stand firm upon can suddenly feel like shifting sand. It's a scary feeling, but it's a disorientation we all go through at some point in our lives. In Matthew chapter 11, one of the great heroes of the faith finds himself in prison, facing death and struggling to make sense of things that were once crystal clear to him. That man is John the Baptist, the cousin and forerunner of Jesus the Messiah. Herod had John arrested, and while suffering in prison, he began to question whether Jesus was actually the one God had promised to be the Savior of the world. John sent his own followers to ask Jesus for clarification. Now, at this point in his ministry, Jesus had taught with stunning clarity and authority, calmed a storm, healed the sick, restored sight to the blind, raised a person from the dead, and much more. In other words, there was plenty of evidence to suggest that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. Yet despite this, Jesus still patiently answered the question posed to him about his identity. He did so by referencing the words of Isaiah, the great prophet of old, who predicted that the Messiah would give sight to the blind, make the lame to walk, cure those with leprosy, make the deaf to hear, raise the dead, and preach the good news to the poor. He closes by speaking a blessing for those who would overcome their biases and unbelief and instead hear and see all that Jesus was saying and doing and accept that he is the Messiah. What Jesus is clearly and yet not absolutely explicitly communicating is that he is indeed the promised Messiah, and in doing so, Jesus spelled out the truth about himself to the crowd while gently encouraging his suffering cousin that he was indeed suffering for the one who was promised. Like John, you and I will experience moments of clarity and moments of disorientation and even doubt. But in the same way, Jesus patiently points John to reminders of his great power and justice and love. So Jesus also responds to us in our weakness and sincere searching.
Any critique of the content, or just which one I think is which and why?
This one's on the border because it starts out with all this emotional connection. Then it gets a little, I guess, dry during the middle part of it. So the open was good. It had me there. I'm like, okay, well, the other one was good, but this one really going for the emotions. The other thing that I can't decide on is the connections. Now, the second one I think did a little bit of it. I mean, that's sort of those hyperlinks, if you will, that that someone who's really involved with and gets it and wants to bring that out to reinforce what they're saying, I like that. But then at the end, there was some reiteration happening.
I think all three are faithful to the immediate, explicit, surface context of what the text in Matthew 11 is telling us. In other words, I don't see any glaring errors. The second thing that I would say about all three is that I didn't find any of the three particularly insightful. I found them, all three, strangely comforting of the people that would hear them. And by that what I mean is that the exegesis of the text in all three serves to make me feel comfortable in who I am, as opposed to maybe lifting my vision to see what else I could become as a follower of Jesus. Having said that, then I'm left with playing the game, which is trying to detect what would be the human tells or what would be the AI tells. And I want to say right up front that I am no expert on this, but if I had to rank them 1, 2, and 3, I would say that 1 and 3 were written by Matt and 2 was written by AI. It seemed to me that in number 1 and number 3, the author was at pains to make sure that we understood who the players were. Who is this guy, John, comma, the Baptist, comma, Jesus' cousin? In other words, there was more of an effort that I saw in 1 and 3 to provide context and background that would help the listener to follow the action, know who the players were. And those, to me, would be the tells of a preacher to make sure that he's bringing his or her audience along. So there you got it. I'm saying 1 and 3 are Matt. 2 is the mysterious ChatGPT. You going to make your picks before we get the reveal?
Oh man. So we know 2 are AI and 1 is human. Oh man. See.
Or do we?
Or do we?
Or do we?
I'm going to go with 1 AI, 2 human, and then 3 AI.
I see. Number 1
1
AI.
is AI, 2 is human, 3 is AI. That's my pick.
Now, this is fun. My picks are the mirror opposite. Human, AI, human. Mirror opposite.
We're at least right on 1.
We have to
Somebody, right, because we're opposites.
We're opposites.
So one of us has got it right.
1 and 6 is right.
Right.
Okay, I'm stalling. Straight up, I'm stalling to buy you time. Final answer, what'd you come up with? Well, I will tell you this. The first one I read was AI. That was ChatGPT.
Look at you.
Look at me.
The second one I read
I know
was
robot
also
when I see
AI.
it.
That was ChatGPT, and you're smart and you know how the process of elimination works. The
That was
third
close.
one
You saw
was me. Now, here's what I noticed between the
You
three.
struggled with it.
I did.
First of all, I was stunned, maybe even a little bit troubled by really how good both of the AI mini sermons were.
I thought the wrong one was the human.
Right.
So, I mean, they were pretty good. The second and third one I thought were really good.
Yeah, qualitatively, I think so. What I did was I watched all 3 without making any comments, and then tried to take it as a group.
Gotcha.
And my criterion, such as it is, totally subjective, was: did I see in the text of the sermon an attempt to enhance understanding, like John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin?
Right.
You know, the little bit that
Those
that a
those
human-
hyperlinks.
Yeah. Well, you call them hyperlink, and I'd say that's like the speaker trying to make sure that you're with him or her, right?
Yeah.
And I thought I picked a little bit of that up in number 1. I was pretty confident that 2 was AI, 3 was human, and I was a flip of the coin on number 1.
And again, it was that I felt there was. I liked the we part of the second one. I spent a lot of time on that one, but I think that emotional connection is why it was really tough on number 3, because I felt like trying to get in there and not just up here, but in there. Like, put yourself in that place.
There you go.
I wrote my thing first. So I finished recording. I did not get up from this desk I'm sitting at here at my buddy's house. I used this Bible, the one I use for my daily Bible podcast, and I just went through it and worked out the little thing that I just read to you. Like I said, it wasn't real easy to do that, and I did have to take a couple of runs at it just to find a tone that felt neutral and not just glaringly like me.
There's two things at foot here. If he wrote his entire sermon first, that would affect how he would write the prompts.
Absolutely.
If he writes the prompts, then sees what AI does, and then writes his sermon, you see these things are connected in some way.
No, I
one
think,
way or the other.
I think you're totally right about the prompts, because as he's doing it, writing the sermon, and he may be going, well, this is what I really want to see if the AI can mimic or can bring forth. But so, what do you think in general? I mean,
well, I also did a critique of all three of them.
Okay.
And I said, and I had to apologize to the person, this guy Matt, because it put me in the position of critiquing his work, and I said, it's all comfort and no challenge from all three.
Yeah.
And that was a critique. Is like, for me, a good sermon will elucidate the text, but then call us up into some sort of discipleship or Christ-likeness. And it was like, you're just fine, listener, because you and John, we understand that you can have.
Well, I don't. James somewhere says something to the effect, "Faith without works is not that great," and I think that's what I hear you saying is it was good. I mean, here, let's strengthen your faith, but not a call to action, if you will.
Too comfortable by half.
Yeah. Well, there we have it. Well, thank you for watching this episode, and thank you, Ray, for joining us. That was
always
fun.
a pleasure.
Let's see if we can do it again.
Tons of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and if you liked it, then hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, help us with the AI algorithm, that's right, and the notification bell. Have a good day. Thank you. If you like this video and want to see more, click on one of the links.